Now here's a fragrance where as soon as I smelled it, I said, wait a second, I know what this is. I've smelled this before. I own this fragrance. It immediately jogged my memory. And after like 30 seconds of really internalizing and meditating on it, I was like, I know what this is. So here we have an affordable fragrance that smells expensive. This is by Lalique and it's called Lalique White and Black. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on this fragrance, so make sure to stay tuned. Before I begin my fragrance review of Lalique White and Black and I tell you all about it, the fragrance it smells like, why I think it smells expensive, the performance, the longevity, the versatility, all that important information, I do want to start things off by saying that if you're a fan of fragrance related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell so you can be notified whenever I do upload a future video to this channel. And give this video a thumbs up if you take something of value from today's review. And I also want to mention that if you're interested in purchasing this fragrance, you may do so at perfumeonline.ca. A lot of hard to find niche and designer fragrances for a really, really good price. They're highly responsive. The customer service is exceptional. And I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag. I think this fragrance smells a lot like Layton by Parfums de Marly. If you're familiar with the Marly House, you know that this is their best release. Definitely the best seller. Best is subjective, of course, but this is the one that has presumably sold the most units from conversations that I've had. And what I think is kind of funny is that Lalique White, the fragrance of which this is a flanker, actually smells like Parfums de Marly Galloway, but Lalique White came out first. So then Marly came out with Layton subsequent to all of that. And now we have White and Black, which smells like Layton. So it seems like a little tit for tat, and I'll leave it up to you to speculate what might have happened there. But interestingly enough, yes, this smells like Layton. As soon as I sprayed it on, I was like, wait a second, there's something familiar here. In any case, I do want to spend a nice bit of time talking about the smell. So let's go ahead and kick things off with the presentation. So right in the opening, you're going to get that sweetness, right? One of the things that, Layton is characteristic of is that sweetness that it embodies. It has a lot of vanilla. The vanilla is, kind of coupled with the lavender and the apple and some of these other bright aromatic ingredients. And you also get a little bit of that happening in this fragrance too. Now, in terms of the note breakdown, there are some similarities. Thankfully, I do have a tester of Layton, and so I have all of the notes listed on the back here. But there's bergamot. There's also bergamot in Lalique's White and Black. There's lavender. That's a similarity as well. There is geranium. Not sure about that. They both have cardamom. They both have vanilla. I know White and Black has ambroxan. That's not listed as a note here. But you see, there is a parallel with a lot of ingredients that are listed in the note breakdown. And that can be a little misleading sometimes because it doesn't always translate to the same smell. In this case, it does. I think the fragrances are like 90 or 95% similar to one another. So basically, for those of you who are not familiar with how Layton smells and how it evolves and unfolds on skin, it basically opens up sweet. You're going to get a lot of vanilla. You do have this apple-like freshness, but it's not ultra defined. You're mostly going to get like this lavender and vanilla combination with a distant note of cardamom. Now, cardamom is also very aromatic, kind of spicy, but very exotic and a little sensual and definitely masculine smelling. That's kind of the effect that it has in this fragrance and also Layton. And The cardamom is in there. You're not going to get it right away, but once you give the fragrance a chance to really settle on skin, once that citrus kind of dissipates, you're going to get the spicy elements, which are kind of residing in the heart, but the vanilla is present for the entire duration of this fragrance. Now, it's because of the sweetness that people, say the original Layton is a great clubbing fragrance. You go to a club, you go to a bar, you go to a party, you're spending a night out on the town. It's a wonderful choice, right? It's a fragrance that's going to get you noticed. It has a mass appealing DNA, and all of those things can also be applied to this fragrance given the similarity. So personally, I love this smell. I love the DNA of Layton, and here we have a fragrance that is really, really similar to Layton. Now, the notable difference, or the one that I was able to pick up on, is there's a quality in this. I don't know if it's the ambroxan, but there's something in here that gives it that designer level vibe. That's not to suggest that it smells more inexpensive, but it's almost like taking the mold or the DNA of Layton and kind of commercializing it. Like, oh, here it's going to appeal to a more designer-centric consumer. I think that's kind of the best way to explain it, because in terms of the nitty-gritty details and the differences in terms of the smell, it's very hard to pinpoint unless you do like a lab analysis on it and you put it through a GC machine. But this fragrance does smell a little bit different from Layton, but it's a very strong similarity. So with that being said, I would suggest that if you want a fragrance that has a very similar smell to Layton, but you're on a budget, but you also want to wear something that is brand name, famous designer, this fragrance is a solid choice. If you want a fragrance that excels in projection and performance and those things really matter to you, I would still go with Layton, because I do think that Layton will give you several hours of longevity over this fragrance. In terms of the quality of ingredients being used, I'm not entirely sure there. My assumption would be that Parfums de Marly uses slightly better raw materials. A lot of designer fragrances nowadays use an abundance of synthetics, so that old misnomer of, niche being natural is not necessarily true. It's never been true, although there are some brands that do sort of curate a lot of natural raw materials and they kind of prioritize and glorify that, which is great. I don't think that's the case with any one of these two fragrances here, but I personally love the smell of Layton. Layton came out first. Layton is going to give you better performance, and if that's important to you as it is to me, getting those 3 or 4 extra hours, then I would say totally go for it, especially if you have the money to afford it. Not to mention that Layton is also a fragrance that can be found discounted as well. So I think in that case, it might actually be worth getting that. And in terms of the sizing, 4.2, so they're exactly the same size. So you can do the numbers, crunch the numbers, do the math, but I do like the smell. I really am a fan of this DNA. And yes, Perfume Online does have this fragrance, and for the budget conscious consumers, I think this is an amazing choice. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. Now, first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, well, I don't think this is the most unique fragrance because I was able to make an immediate connection to another popular niche fragrance. And, a lot of times there are fragrances that have, similar ingredients, but it doesn't always translate to the same smell or even a similar smell. In this case, actually it does, right? So I don't think it's super unique, but the overall smell is amazing. I think people are going to love it, as they've been loving Layton for many years. And so I think it's going to resonate with consumers. I think it's going to do very well. In terms of the longevity, you can expect about 6 to 7 hours on skin. Layton gives me about 9 or 10 hours on skin. So there is a bit of a difference, and I don't think it's so negligible. In terms of the projection, this was great for the first 45 minutes of application. It did start to sit closer to the skin right about that 4.5 hour mark. Versatility, I think you can wear this one all year round. Something like a Layton Exclusive, or if we're talking about Lalique, something like Encre Noir. That's a fragrance that I would wear in the winter time or in the fall. This, I think, is all year round. You can wear it casually because of the price. You can wear it formally because of the smell and just how niche it smells, and it does actually convey a certain quality of expensiveness, so I do like that about it. I do think it leans a little bit masculine, and that's considering my experience with the aforementioned Marley fragrance, but I do think that this is, all things considered, a versatile perfume. And in terms of the presentation, I do like the presentation, and if you saw when we were talking about the presentation segment, I had mentioned that there was this pencil that is included in the package, and you can actually use it to draw on your bottle, which I think is pretty cool, adds a certain level of personalization to the fragrance. So my final verdict is, if you are a fan of Layton by Parfums de Marly, you want a fragrance that smells very similar but for a fraction of the cost, and you're willing to compromise on a few hours of longevity and not exactly the same DNA but something slightly more commercialized, definitely check this fragrance out. I hope you like it. You know, these are just recommendations. I always recommend that you go out there, you sample the fragrance for yourself, be your own judge, trust your own nose. Thank you so much for watching. That was my review of Lalique's White and Black, and you can find this fragrance at perfumeonline.ca. Thank you so much for watching. Love you all. If you enjoyed this video and you took something of value from today's episode, once again, please, please, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit that bell icon so whenever I do upload these videos, you're going to get notified about them, and also give this video a thumbs up. It would really mean a lot to me. Thanks for watching. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.